Hi everyone, I just want to thank you for joining the info session today about the Master of Sustainability here at Brock University. My name is Marilyn Jolino and I'm the grad program director. So we're here today to share information about this program. So just to give you a little bit of background on what we're going to talk about today, I'll talk a little bit about the geographic location, and then we'll get into the details of the program itself, starting with what is sustainability science, what's the program aim and objectives, with some of the degree nomenclature, and then the structure, funding, which everyone is always interested in, the admissions requirements, and then some post-degree career opportunities and some ideas around some of the co-op positions that our students have taken. And then we'll share some contact information and, of course, open the floor to some questions. So first, around our geographic location, we're here in the Niagara region of Ontario, Canada, which happens to be one of the warmest places in Canada for those joining us across the globe. I've added a few links here, and we do plan to share these slides with you so that you can actually get access to other resources you'll see in the presentation. So we do provide some information around living in the Niagara region. There's a couple of images here. First, the map hopefully shows you our location. We're just south of Toronto. We're in between two of the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, and we've got on our right-hand side, you can see a piece of the United States. So we're close to a border. We're also in a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, which is really important because those sites are designed to be learning environments for sustainability, which is really cool. So we have the conditions here, environmentally, socially, economically, that make this a fantastic location to learn and study. So our home base here is at Teal House, which is also on campus and close to a lot of lovely trails that we have along the Niagara Escarpment. And we're very close, 15 minutes away roughly to Niagara Falls. So it's a location where you have access to all of those environments that that lend themselves nicely to studies of sustainability science. We've got, water bodies nearby, forests, urban environments, and of course we're combating climate change all at the same time, right? So it's a great environment to study sustainability science. So that's a term it's a fairly new discipline in that it's emerged since about the 2000s, coming out of sustainable development, talk of sustainable development, where sustainability science basically takes the sort of natural sciences together with social sciences, including societies and human beings, for more effective problem solving. And we take a transdisciplinary perspective or approach, which means that we draw from various disciplines. So we transcend those disciplinary boundaries that sometimes kind of create barriers to understanding, right? So we look at natural science, for example, biology, ecology, physical geography, to the social sciences and even humanities, right? So anthropology, human geography, economics are really important pieces to solving the sustainability challenges, environmental challenges that we face, right? Like climate change. Think about, just in the context of climate change, think about flood events, drought events, forest fires. All of those pieces impact communities here in the Niagara region and, of course, across the globe. So we focus on socially relevant problems and take a solutions-oriented approach. And we recognize that, of course, to address these complex challenges, we need to bring together all kinds of different voices, including Indigenous voices, for example, and other voices that aren't often heard in addressing these challenges. So our aim is to help society transition, of course, to sustainability. And we do that by providing both research experiences and applied learning experiences. One example would be through co-op, but there are other examples through fieldwork, for example, and experiential education opportunities in our classes. In terms of the degree, students come out of the program where they get a degree of Master of Sustainability, and then it depends on what scheme that you chose. If there's an additional tag, for example, a co-op piece to that. So we have scheme A, B, and C, and I'll give you a breakdown of each scheme. There are different lengths of study. And they also involve different components. So it depends on whether you're looking for that really intense research experience versus a more practical experience or some co-op experience. If you've already been working in the sustainability science or some similar field for some time, then maybe you're coming back to just do the coursework and a major research paper or MRP. So choosing a scheme, and this slide is really busy, but it includes a lot of information that you can revisit after the fact. We often get questions from students saying, am I at a disadvantage in enrolling in one scheme over the other, right? Especially when they're thinking about potentially going into a PhD program. So that answer is no. These each are different lengths of study. Scheme A is 16 months, Scheme B is 24 months or 2 years, and Scheme C is a 1-year program. So it really depends on whether you're looking for, the research experience, the practical experience, and then the coursework. Then Scheme A is a nice program for you. Typically, you would do coursework in this scheme in the first 2 terms of study, and in the third one, you would do your co-op, and then you'd come back in the fourth to do work on your major research paper, which is nice because you get the kind of theoretical pieces from your coursework. You get experiential ed from your courses. Then you're developing your proposal in the winter term. So by the time the research component comes, you've already had the courses, the experiential ed, and of course a co-op. So you're better positioned to now address the research, right? You've had a bit of experience in research already. In Scheme B, you take fewer courses and you spend more time in the research domain. So it's more rigorous experience. You still get experiential ed experiences through courses, for example. And then, of course, within your research experience, you're very likely working with project partners. So you're paired with a faculty member, but you're also getting experience with project partners. In fact, all our schemes involve, to some extent, our project partners and working with them. In Scheme C, you're undertaking your coursework and then a major research paper. You likely already have some work experience. So I give you some details, and I'm happy to entertain questions about each one of those schemes. So you'll indicate when you apply which scheme you'd like to belong to. I mentioned the experiential ed. This slide is a nice graphic that just shows you some of the types of experiences that you might expect from being in our program, from the traditional classroom to out in the field collecting data, for example, in a course or for your research, being involved in various activities here on campus. For example, there was a day where we focused on sustainable development goals. Those are SAS students there in the picture, as well as some students involved in planting a little plot in our community garden, which is located just beside Teal House, which is really nice. All the way to taking field trips. This one trip on the bottom left shows us visiting the Vineland Research and Innovation Center. They've worked with us looking at the urban tree canopy, but also agricultural context. So they do a lot of innovation around agriculture. And then lastly, there's conferences and other events that happen outside of campus and on campus that students are always encouraged to be involved in. So that's just a nice little image for you. I want to tell you a bit about faculty, because you do have to list 3 faculty members that you could see yourself working with because your research interests are aligned. with those faculty. You don't need to reach out to the faculty member that you're identifying. You're just saying, here are my ranked preferences of 3 faculty members I could see myself working with because I'm interested in the research that they're doing or in a similar topic. So for example, I'm spending a lot of time lately studying the urban tree canopy, but there's many different directions I can take that work, right? So if a student approached me and said, hey, I'm interested in looking at access to the forest canopy, for example, and equity issues, then I would still have an interest, even though I've not spent a lot of time in that area of research focus. So to give you some names that you can look up using the link that's provided on the previous slide. And when you go to apply to the program, you'll see a link there as well. Some of you that are here in the audience may recognize some of these faculty members as potential instructors that you have here at Brock. So these are all members of the Brock community, and we actually have about 12 core faculty for the next entry in fall 2023 who are available to supervise students. And they're coming from various backgrounds. So we have many different faculties here at Brock. We have people coming from the Faculty of Social Science, to Applied Health Science, to Math and Science and Biology, for example. There's Earth Science as well from the Sciences. And then, of course, the Goodman School of Business. A newer faculty member has recently been added to this list. So the research endeavors can range from looking at resilience, climate change adaptation, wetland environments, forested environments, urban sprawl. We have some faculty that have looked at low impact development, others that look at branding and marketing around sustainability. You've probably seen commercials where Tim Hortons actually hired a sustainability scientist, to corporate social responsibility, right? So there's many different opportunities for research. In all of our schemes, you are paired with a supervisor who oversees your MRP or your thesis work. So here are the 3 different schemes color-coded here for you. What's really nice, I think, about the program is that we bring all schemes of students together in some of our courses, especially those core courses like 5P01 and 5P02, where we introduce you to the sort of foundations of sustainability science. Because we welcome students from many different academic backgrounds, again, the transdisciplinary nature of the program, it means that we have to bring everybody kind of to the same page around what we see as sustainability science. So in that sort of core foundational course, you all learn about what we mean by sustainability science, right? And what are some of the methods that we use as sustainability scientists. So a common question is, well, if I have a degree in architecture, then yes, actually, you can be part of the program, right? So those are the different courses, and it shows you the different timeline for each. So again, some of the schemes, A and C, involve more courses than others, like Scheme B, where you're focused more on your thesis work. Again, students go out into the field quite a bit in our program, and even center partners have funded trips, for example, to Niagara Falls, where some students had obviously never been to the falls. So those are just some examples for you. In terms of funding, and I want to welcome from the Faculty of Grad Studies, Sarah Burgers here to answer questions online or in person around the pieces of funding. That's the main purview of the Faculty of Grad Studies, is to provide the information around, what do students or how are students funded in our programs. This funding information is relevant for this year. So next year it could change. Typically there's some minor changes kind of year to year. So this is for this current year. You have funding information, and you also have tuition information here. And there's quite a few details, so I don't just say, okay, this is we typically would walk through that or go through these links, where you can also provide find information around awards and scholarships. You'll notice that the funding packages are divided between domestic and international students at the master's level or the PhD level. And then you'll notice that the funding is also broken into fellowships. Fellowship funds are applied directly to your tuition, whereas the grad assistantship is employment income. And that's an important piece because you are employed at Brock. You must be eligible to work in Canada before you can accept either a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship. So at minimum, you'd need a social insurance number here in Canada and a Canadian bank account to be eligible to work here in Canada. There are many internal and external scholarships that students can also apply for to help offset the costs of getting your education. And lastly, the co-op is a separate piece where you want to just note that that funding is processed over the 3 out of 4 terms, because one of those terms you're getting employment income from your co-op. And again, that's typically in the spring, summer. Okay, moving on to admissions criteria. So it's really important to note that this is a competitive program. Typically, we're bringing about 12 to 15 students in every year. So you want to make sure that you are indeed eligible to apply to the program. So a 4-year bachelor's degree or equivalent. And again, that's from an accredited university and from multiple different academic backgrounds. You're coming in with a minimum 75% average. And that's really important too, because it's very difficult to justify admitting a student below that average when we have about, upwards of 150 applications every year. Then we typically have students coming in with 80s and even into the 90s. So just being aware of that. But also, we know that that can set a student up for failure. So below a 75 average, while there have been exceptions, very few exceptions made, we must make an argument to the Dean of Grad Studies as to why that student should be admitted and why we think that 74% maybe shouldn't count as much in our decision making. And I'll give you an example. A student goes to university and does fairly poorly, comes out with a 74 average. So they're just about there, but they're not there as a 75 average. However, they've spent the last 15 years working in the field of sustainability science. They've published 3 papers in credible journals. Of course, then that's an exceptional admit, right? So we don't just make blanket decisions. We do take into account these other factors when we're making admissions decisions. So that 75% is over the last 2 years of undergraduate study. We also have proficiency in English requirements, so you want to make note of those as well. And the application deadline is February 3rd, so that's still quite a bit of time to get an application together. I'll just go over the application, so keep notes on any questions you have, and then we'll address those because we're almost done. So there's a couple of items that you need to include in your application, and I want to speak to those items in particular and provide you some tips on how you can make your application stand out, because I have literally read thousands of applications over the last 7 years that our program has been around. So a couple things, you're putting in a curriculum vitae or a CV. Some people call it a resume. You want to make sure that that's capturing all the things that you've done. If there are awards that you got in your undergrad, then it's a good idea to briefly describe what that award was about, right? It's nice to know that you got an award, but was it because of your academic performance? Were you in the top 5 of your graduating class? So give us some details there. If you've published or presented papers at conferences or any other research endeavors, then it would be a great idea to tell us a bit more about those. So that's a great place to do that in your CV. You could also highlight those in your written statement of intent. Try to avoid a casual tone in that statement of intent and really get at what are your research interests, who's aligned with those interests, or do you see some people that you could work with? Because at the end of the day, if there's not a supervisor who has expertise in that area of interest, it's unlikely we'd be able to admit you to the program because it would be really unfair to not have somebody with expertise in your area of interest. In terms of the references, I have quite a few tips. First, you would want to choose, wherever possible, an academic reference. So that would be a professor, let's say, that's taught you in an undergrad class or taught you in a couple classes. You also want to make sure that you would contact them well ahead of the application deadline. So I would be reaching out now to those references and to give them information, say this is the program, and provide a link to the program description. It's the program I'm interested in applying to. This is why I'd like to apply to this program. You taught me in XY course, because they may not remember that, I did give them the percent in the course, maybe remind them of a presentation or a project that you did. And then you could explain to them, that you've also done these extracurricular activities, or that you have, been on the Dean's Honor List, etc. Should they agree to write a letter for you, right? But reaching out well ahead of time and even having that information available already, where they don't have to then ask you, can you do this, a long list of things they need to be well informed to write that letter. So make it hard for them to say no when you've got, here's the program, here's my CV, here's my unofficial transcript, for example, here's my statement of intent, this is what I plan to do, this is who I plan to work with, right? Then that allows them to say, hey, this person is serious, they've done their homework, you need to do that work anyway because you have to approach others, and it might mean that they say yes, right? Often we have to write a letter and speak to the student's judgment and capabilities in terms of research or their promise or potential for research. So reminding them of all of those pieces is a really great idea. Then they don't have to hunt for it. They know already what awards you have and can speak to all of those. I think that's all I wanted to say, other than to note that when you do look at that listing of faculty, there may be more faculty there than those available to supervise. So when you do review that listing, make sure you're looking at who is available to supervise next year, starting next fall. Okay, here's a long list of career paths, sample research areas, and sample co-op positions. If you visit our website, brocku.ca/ESRC, you can look at our different grad programs, and you can look at the alumni from our program and see not just what scheme, who they worked with, what their thesis or MRP topic was, but also there's information about their co-op positions. And we do have a blog where we get students to post on their co-op experiences or their experiences in our program. I'm very happy to report that this past year, all of the students graduating from our program, including one who hasn't yet graduated, have secured employment, and most of that has been full-time. So I'm going to read you just a quick little list from, we have students share this information with us. One student is just graduated, is now working with an Indigenous group as an environmental referral coordinator in BC, which is really exciting news. There's a full-time position that a student has taken at the Office of the Auditor General in Ottawa. There's a full-time position at the Vineland Research and Innovation Centre. That was based on some work the student had already done for that center, and she's now a research associate there. We have a program coordinator at the Bow River Basin Council in Alberta, here in Canada, a youth engagement coordinator at Climate Reality Canada, and a research assistant here at Brock. we also have other students who have graduated and gone on to PhD programs. So, and I'm supervising a student right now who just had an interview locally with Niagara Region, and his co-op was also with Niagara Region. So we're seeing some really interesting trends around securing employment after students have gone through our program. And for some before they've even finished the program. And that's, for me as a grad program director, especially exciting, but it's exciting for all of us. And on the admin team, it's lovely that we can share that because we closely watch students move through the program. And often the admin team, like Amanda Smits and Erin Daly, are advising students, right, on what other students have done and where we've had successes. So they're great resources for the program as well. So I welcome you to ask questions, but here's a slide that provides you information around how to apply, what our website is, and of course our different social media accounts. So I've tried to give you a kind of flavor for the program here and welcome your questions. I know there were some questions online around combining an assistantship and the tasks associated that with your studies. So I'll address that one while we're getting questions coming in. Typically as a grad student, you would do either a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship as part of your work. And that would be in the first 2 terms of study. You would be assigned into those, and that's paid employment. And those are capped at about 10 hours a week. You're not meant to work beyond that so that it does allow you to also study at the same time. That's not been an issue for our students over the last 8-some years. There have been times when it's a little bit busier in certain parts of the term. And so, thinking about time management and negotiating those pieces is really important. But that's the kind of practical experience you need, and that's the professional development piece that our program also offers as we help you work through those pieces. And you do get some training around being a research assistant. So Amanda Smits has kindly coordinated a training session at the beginning of every term for students who are research assistants, so they better understand what that looks like. And she's involved heavily in our projects with partners, so it makes sense that she does that, but she does that really well. Another question was around a degree in architecture. If you have an existing master's already, absolutely, you can still apply to our program. That's not a problem. If you've been out of school for some time, then using a professional reference is not frowned upon, so long as they have some experience around your research capabilities. Otherwise, they won't be able to complete that academic reference for you because they won't have any context for it. So just keep that in mind. And I think that's it. So I'll entertain questions if there's any here.
I don't have any online. I have thank yous coming in, but if there's any in person, we could take them. Not to put you all on the spot.
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with my undergrad, I had a few professors, but a lot of my instructors were master's and PhD students. Would they still count as academic references, or does it have to be from like a professor?
It would be best if it's from a professor. Bear in mind that there are positions where it's a lecturer position, and that's not bad. Like, that's not bad. It's best if it does come from an academic that's been involved in a program, if you can.
But it's not unheard of.
But it's not unheard of. It's not unheard of.
Almost all of mine in the last 2 years have been.
Especially if you have a professor for one of your references, right? Instead of both, right?
Yeah.
So it is not unheard of, no. And your references are one part of the bigger picture, right? So I think students often think we just look at references or we just look at grades. No, it's the whole person's application that we're looking at and considering, because we're taking into account the expertise of the faculty. How many people do in fact have research that's aligned with yours, for example? That's really important too. Because if it's completely different,
Yeah.
then your grades are almost irrelevant in that if we can't provide the expertise, we're not gonna invite you into the program, right? Was there anything that I missed that you want me to cover?
No, one thing I would say is we will share this presentation with anyone who RSVP'd.
Yeah.
So you'll get it after today's session.
And then you can access the links to, and there's also an information sheet that those of you in person at least can.
Yeah, we can send that with the presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any other in-person questions?
Can I ask where you're coming from, what programs you're coming from?
I was at political science and labor studies.
Oh, okay, nice.
Human geography with a minor in Canadian studies at Brock here.
Oh, wonderful.
Physics, and I'm minoring in sustainability.
Oh, okay, that's great. Well, it's very nice to meet all of you, yeah. Well, if you do think of questions after the fact and you're like, oh, I should have asked that, please. Oh,
Sorry, we got one online.
that's okay. And you're welcome, by the way, online.
Yeah, so it says, hi, I'm joining the program from Germany. I'm studying a master's degree in public policy and good governance in English and completed my bachelor's degree in English too. My question would be, do I still need to issue the English language proficiency test? Sarah, I'll look to you. I don't think so, right?
No, yeah, as long as they've had, I think it's 3 years in undergrad or 2 years in graduate program, they're okay.
Yeah.
There are
So just maybe want to
also,
repeat that. I just don't know.
So,
there are also exempt countries from the English proficiency test, and I believe Germany is on that list.
okay, so the answer is no. There are some countries that are listed as not requiring English, or you wouldn't need it, and Germany is on that list. But also that if you're in, is it a 3 years for an undergrad program
Yeah, 3,
or 2-year
you
masters?
need 3 or more years for a master's and then 2 or more years for a doctoral, but yeah.
Okay, so 3 or more years for a master's or 2 or more years for a doctorate. I think they were at the master's level.
Yeah.
Then no, it's not required.
Sorry, 1 second.
No, no worries.
Okay, and then there's, oh, Sarah, thanks, sorry. Sarah added a link. I can't see the question until I publish it, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
We're good. So that's all the questions we have online.
All right. Well, then we'll end it here. Thank you so much. Reach out to us at sas@brockU.ca if you have any other questions.